Good morning. Nice to see everybody here. I guess you can hear me. Wave a hand if you can hear. All right. Way to go. I love it when the technology works. Let's see. I don't have my script here. I was just impromptu stand-in. So, let's see. This morning's talk, I think most of you are familiar with Ekyo Susan Nelson. She's been a longtime practitioner, started out in the late 80s with Katagiri, and has been a transmitted priest for, 12 years? Something like that. It seems a long time. Anyway, she's on staff at Hokyoji, and she's also a teacher at the Minnesota Zen Meditation Center. And let's see if we're supposed to have something that goes into the chat screen. I'm not prepared this morning. So anyway, there we go. It might be a better sound, the original sound. Well, thanks for joining in with us, and I am just going to let Ekyo go ahead, start on her talk. So thank you much. Nice to see you all.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Good.
Yes.
So nice to see you all. This morning, I'm going to talk about the great matter of birth and death mostly from the relative perspective. And I'll start with a verse that's found on the Han, the wooden block that is hit, that brings us to Zazen. Great is the matter of birth and death, quickly passing, gone, gone. Awake, each one, awaken. Don't waste this life. This verse, I think, offers excellent guidance regarding the attitude to cultivate towards practice. It cuts directly to the point. We will die someday. Every one of us will die. There's no escape. Our mortality is an important backdrop which can help frame our practice. The more we hesitate or procrastinate putting it off for tomorrow, the closer death comes and the less time we have to practice and to live our lives vividly. So the Han is one of the ways we mark the sitting schedule at monasteries and Zen centers. And when I was at Clouds and Water for a few years with Dosho Mike Port was the guiding teacher, and they would hit the Han, do multiple roll downs on the Han, and call out this verse quite loudly at the end of the night before sleep, which I thought was helpful. You know, sometimes it would make me jump because I quieted down a lot and I'd been sitting all day, and suddenly they're beating on the Han and calling out this verse about not wasting time. So just following the schedule is the excellent advice that we all got from Katagiri-roshi. Well, some of us did. And when we let go of my time during practice, it loosens the bonds to me and mine and helps us to settle in more deeply and without resistance. I found it personally so helpful becoming a parent regarding this. After giving up my time for several years, when I became a parent, I found it easier to do when I came back to Sesshin after my kids were a little bit older. My time becomes our time in Sesshin. And this is counter to the culture we live in every day, where my time is touted as being essential to a balanced life. And individual activity is really high in the hierarchy in our culture. So when the Han sounds, we're reminded to let go of me and mine and just go straight. Move to the Zendo and sit down. So to get back to the verse on the Han, I read the first part. Great is the matter of birth and death, with several levels of meaning. The phrase birth and death can refer to samsaric life, turning in circles life. So it refers, samsara refers to the way we live our lives when we're living it from the standpoint of unconscious reactivity. Our lives can look like we're getting jerked around by circumstances. To realize that each moment of living is our chance to practice whatever arises is the antidote to wandering in samsara. There's no other life that's somewhere out there waiting for us to live that is easier or more desirable. So birth and death can also mean our physical lives. Human beings are like snowflakes. We're each unique. There's many, many of us, but we're completely unique and unrepeatable. This is the reality of our lives. So the important question arises, how do I want to live this unique, non-repeatable life? Or as Mary Oliver says, this one precious life. Do I want to live just being jerked around, bounced from circumstance to the next, one circumstance to the next? How we respond to these questions is the great matter. And on a more subtle level, birth and death also, I think, refers to the insight of Buddhist wisdom, which is discerning phenomena as it is. The Buddha gives this definition of wisdom in the Samyutta Nikaya. And what, monks, is the faculty of wisdom? Here, monks, the noble disciple is wise. He possesses wisdom directed to arising and passing away, which is noble and penetrative, leading to the complete destruction of suffering. This is called the faculty of wisdom. The arising and passing away refers to the arising and passing away of dharmas, or moments of our experience. Its impermanence and its lack of self. So the Han's directing us to get to the cushion and to the direct experience of this wisdom. Practice period, or sesshin, is how we create an opportunity to put all these aspects of the great matter into focus. But we don't do this by ruminating about it. We do it, at least in our Soto Zen way of practice, by wholeheartedly engaging in the work of this moment. As Dogen said, to study the self is to forget the self. Whether we're conscious of this or not at the time of practice doesn't matter. To get back to the Han verse, the next line continues, quickly passing, gone, gone. Our human lives pass very quickly. In the history of our planet, 70, 80, or even 100 years is not all that long. I'm noticing that the older I get, the quicker it goes. As the earth blinks an eye, my life will be gone. Our lives are fragile. It's too easy for our lives to be pinched off by accidents or natural disaster. Although here in this country, our circumstances are fortunate. We live in a comfortable and relatively safe part of the world. We have nice Zen centers with good teachers and many nice Sangha members who are all around us. It could be different if we lived in a place like Afghanistan or Syria. Our temple could be blown up by a drone attack, and the loss of our precious human lives may be simply dismissed by some as collateral damage. All practice periods and sessions are like an individual human life. It's the group life of the Sangha which has assembled for that period. Each period is unique and non-repeatable. Our practice periods are only a few weeks long here at Hokyoji. They are quickly passing, gone all too soon. The last couple of lines of the Han verse reads, "Awake each one, awaken. Don't waste this life." Awaken each one, awaken means we're responsible for our own practice and awakening. This is known as Jiriki in Zen. Jiriki is self-power, the effort that we put out. Don't waste this life is the final reiteration of the most important point, that our lives will end. We can either waste our lives, our unique, non-repeatable lives, or we can exert our full effort. The more effort we put into our practice, the more we'll receive from our practice. No one else can do it for us, and we can't share in another person's awakening. The Han reminds us of our responsibility for our own effort. Yet our effort is not only our own individual effort. We're practicing in Sangha. So our individual efforts create the Sangha effort, and the Sangha effort supports our own individual effort. The Sangha effort is called Shariki, or other power, except that here we're part of that other. Dogen put it this way when he said, "Many selves are peacefully dwelling within one self. The one body within the many bodies engages the way." Everyone, do you want to understand this truth? We must eat rice with the mouth of the assembly. Our vitality must be the strength of the assembly. So you really feel that when you're in practice period, wherever, spending weeks with other people doing the practice. You feel that we're one body. It's all about the schedule, and it's about the group practice. At this year's Hokyoji practice period, I was very aware that my time to be able to sit in intensive zazen practice with the group is limited. And two of our group were having a lot of trouble with pain during the sitting, and they each spent time being tenzo because of that. I was so grateful to be able to do the practice with no problem, and I'm motivated to keep doing practice period in Sesshin for as long as I'm able. So now I want to shift to introduce to you the 5 remembrances. And it'll become obvious why this is connected to birth and death. These 5 remembrances have been popularized by Thich Nhat Hanh. And they're reminders of the reality of impermanence and karma as taught in the Upajjhatthana Sutta. Though they start with what's commonly seen as bad news, contemplating them can help us accept life's inevitabilities and motivate us to practice zazen and kindness with each other. I am of the nature to grow old. There is no way to escape growing old. I am of the nature to have ill health. There is no way to escape having ill health. I am of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature to change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. My deeds are my closest companions. I am the beneficiary of my deeds. My deeds are the ground on which I stand. These are about impermanence, they're about birth and death, and also about karma. I'd like to try something with you. If you're willing and able to do it, I'd like to lead you in a guided meditation on the 5 remembrances. So make sure you're comfortable. You can close your eyes if you like, or cast them downward as in zazen. Notice your breathing. Notice any judgments about how things should be. Following the breath in and out. I am of the nature to grow old. Breathing in, growing old. Breathing out, no escape. I am of the nature to have ill health. Breathing in, ill health. Breathing out, no escape. I am of the nature to die. Breathing in, nature to die. Breathing out, no escape. I am of the nature to change. Breathing in, nature to change. Breathing out, no escape. My actions are the ground upon which I stand. Breathing in, actions as the ground. Breathing out, no escape. Actions as ground. So coming back and opening the eyes. I think reciting these remembrances or reading them regularly helps to cut through our basic denial, the denial of death, which our culture foists on us at every turn. And I think it's especially useful for younger people who have a harder time than some of us elders with imagining that these things are true. When I was practicing with the MZMC Sangha in the late 70s, I was the young person I'm referring to. I had not experienced much loss in my life yet. There was a woman in her 50s, Liz, some of you might remember Liz, who died suddenly from a heart issue related to an allergic reaction. Hokyoji insisted that her memorial have an open coffin. He really wanted us to deeply contemplate her loss and impermanence. In those first years of my practice, there were other sudden deaths and serious illnesses in the Sangha, and I was deeply affected by them. Maybe because I was so young. So think of the time, sometime in your life when you were shocked at being human. When you suddenly knew that people die and that by extension, that could happen to you. For me, that came at age 10 with the Fridley tornado of 1965. At that time, barely escaping death, losing everything we had in the world, I had a bit of insight into the possibility of death at any time, at any age. One minute we were surrounded by our things in our cozy home, and the next, all of that was sticks and debris, as were the neighbors' homes all around us. I was bleeding and we were walking away from our home towards safety. So that one was pretty powerful, pretty dramatic, especially at the age of 10. At any age, I think my mother at the time had it harder than we children did, because we could see the days after that as an adventure of sorts. You know, living in a new place, having a completely different routine. The parents were handling the ramifications of all of that. Something about our consciousness as human beings, though, makes it hard for us to accept that we'll be sick, that we'll age and we'll die without some sudden experience of it. And when we see how the aged and the dying are viewed and treated in this society, we can't help sometimes fearing isolation and dependency that comes with it. Lots of people say they don't fear death, but rather fear pain at the end of life. But I think the fear of death runs deep in all of us, as does the denial of it. So studying the great matter of birth and death is to understand that birth is birth, complete in itself. Death is death, complete in itself. It's a deep and subtle teaching to surrender oneself completely into birth and death, the arising and the extinction of our form, birth and death arising and falling away. Here's a poem by the nun and Chinese master Fa Yuan. This body without a self can be compared to floating duckweed. This body with its troubles is exactly like a leaf in the wind. This cycle of life and death is just like night and day. And this poem's message reminds me of the koan that I received for my Shuso ceremony. Sun-faced Buddha, moon-faced Buddha. In this koan story, Master Ma has been unwell for some time. The monastery administrator goes to see him and asks after his health. Ma says to him, "It's just like this. Sometimes I'm sun-faced Buddha, and sometimes I'm moon-faced Buddha. Sun-faced Buddha lasts for a very long time, eons, and moon-faced Buddha lasts for just one night." It's a pithy way of expressing his realization of both the undying and the dying. Birth and death includes the realization of both the undying and the impermanent. Nirvana is the embodiment of the eternal. Ordinary consciousness includes death or cessation. The Heart Sutra includes the denial of old age and death, but also the denial of the extinction of old age and death. It leaves us nowhere to land, but here in the present moment. Here's a quote from Katagiri from Returning to Silence. "We don't know when life will fade away. We should remember this. When we think of life simultaneously, we should know that life is fading away. It's a dangerous situation. It's difficult to stand up in this situation. But even though we cannot stand up there, we cannot despair because there are no exceptions. Look at yourself. You are fading away from moment to moment. You are marching to the grave. You may not accept this, but it's true. And this is why life is beautiful. The china bowl is beautiful because sooner or later it'll break. The life of the bowl is always existing in a dangerous situation." So this is, to me, is one of the ways to contemplate our own death in a consoling rather than with a manner, rather than with terror or existential dread. Our lives are beautiful because they're limited. We can see that with a flower. We can see that with the seasons. Anyway, Zen practice helps me to see this, and it also helps me to see the beauty around me. So combining the 5 realizations with Zazen is a way we could contemplate birth and death. In Zazen, we see the birth of a thought and the passing away of that thought. We see how our dreams and intensive practice bring up our fears so that we can look at them clearly in the light of day. Katagiri-roshi said, "We should be very grateful to have a limited body, like mine or yours. If you had a limitless life, that would be a real problem for you. Whatever can help us to truly appreciate this life and live with gratitude is a worthy use of time. Gratitude's available to all of us, and it's one of the easiest practices to start with, but it's definitely not superficial. There are reasons in every direction to be grateful." So Sojin Mel Weitzman said this about impermanence. "We would like to be free from impermanence, but to be free from impermanence is to totally go with impermanence. Liberation from trying to preserve something which cannot be preserved is called freedom. Being attached to something which is not permanent is called suffering." So we have this opportunity daily and hourly to practice with birth and death, to know freedom from suffering, and to appreciate our lives, which are unique, beautiful, and rare. Practicing kindness naturally follows when we're steeped in the understanding of suffering, no self, and impermanence. Suzuki-roshi was asked by a student, "What's the most important thing in Zen?" Suzuki responded that to know what is the most important thing is the most important thing. I'd like to end today with a poem called Kindness by Naomi Shihab Nye. The background for this poem is that she and her husband were traveling in Central America on a bus. And some bandits got on the bus and robbed them of everything they had, all their money, probably their phones. And they also killed someone else who was on the bus. So she wrote this in response to that experience. Kindness. Listen, before you know what kindness really is, you must lose things. Feel the future dissolve in a moment like salt in a weakened broth. What you held in your hand, what you counted and carefully saved, all this must go. So you know how desolate the landscape can be between the regions of kindness. How you ride and ride, thinking the bus will never stop. The passengers eating maize and chicken will stare out the window forever. Before you learn the tender gravity of kindness, you must travel where the Indian in a white poncho lies dead by the side of the road. You must see how this could be you, how he too was someone who journeyed through the night with plans and the simple breath that kept him alive. Before you know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. You must wake up with sorrow. You must speak to it till your voice catches the thread of all sorrows and you see the size of the cloth. Then it is only kindness that makes sense anymore. Only kindness that ties your shoes and sends you out into the day to gaze at bread. Only kindness that raises its head from the crowd of the world to say, "It is I you've been looking for," and then goes with you everywhere, like a shadow or a friend. So that's my talk. Thank you for listening. And I would be happy to hear your comments, or maybe you could tell the story about when you, sometime in your life when you knew that life is a dangerous situation, very impermanent. Or you could tell a joke.
Well, thank you, Ekyo. If you have questions or comments, just wave your hand and I will unmute you. Aha.
Tim. Hi, Tim.
I guess I can't unmute you. You have to unmute yourself. There you go.
That's in my skill set. So, Ekyo, how would you balance or mesh together the statement, "Don't waste time," with kind of our everydayness of our life, which Zen doesn't necessarily discourage in the slightest, of just getting up and going to work and doing things that don't seem too particularly earth-shattering.
Right. That's what most of our life is like. You know, it's pretty routine. But I think what Zen helps us to realize is that we can be completely wholeheartedly engaging in whatever our life is at the moment, whatever's presented to us, is to not go on automatic pilot, which we're so prone to do, but to stay awake to what's happening. And, you know, find ways to practice kindness in everyday life with coworkers, with family, friends. Because, you know, how do you want to live this one precious life? You know, even if you're just getting up and going to work and it seems so ordinary, it's still a precious opportunity that you have. Hi, Barbara.
Hi, Ekyo. I'll make a comment.
Okay.
Circumstances in my life changed quite a bit when I was in my 40s. And I started doing adventure travel of a very dangerous sort. 15 trips up to the Arctic involving a lot of grizzly bears, close to 500 within 50 feet of me. I kept track of them. And actually, I've been thinking of this quite a bit because I'm rereading Barry Lopez's book, Arctic Dreams, which is so beautiful. Part of the reason I'm thinking about this so much is because a lot of people, a lot of my friends feel so sorry for me because I have stage 4 breast cancer, but it's in remission. And I keep thinking about it, and what I realize is how wonderful all those dangerous times have made my life. They have. All the trips where we ran out of food and had a week left before the plane picked us up, and, you know, all those crazy situations, the dangerous situations, and the cancer have enriched my life so much. I'm very aware of this life-death situation. And it's made my life so much richer. So I don't live in the future where I'm constantly saying, oh, you know, I have 2 more years left. But I sort of mark the impermanence by acknowledging on a daily basis the passage of time, the fact that I'm older, the fact that I can't do everything that I could like 20 years ago, but I can still do a lot. I can still make every day wonderful. So I loved your talk. I thought it was wonderful, and I think it's very important to keep that in mind. But I'm sure you would have 20 different ideas of how you do that. And I'd love to hear other people's ideas of how they balance the life-death issue today or on a daily basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hello.
Hi, Myeon.
I'm glad you're going to respond, Myeon.
So last week I had the privilege of listening to a talk that, attending a talk Myeon was giving at Clouds and Water. And one thing she spoke about was connecting with Tomoe-san, and Tomoe-san saying that she's fading away. And Myo said something like this, and I might take a little of my own ideas with that, about when we're fading away, that in some way, what's fading away, and in some way, perhaps some of our ways of being are fading away, but in some way that's making space for being really alive in our lives. And I really appreciated what Myo spoke about, and I think it really pertains to what you were saying today.
Thanks. Roger. Hi, Roger.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So my one word response to you is wow.
Oh, okay.
And the way it resonates with me is this. I've been for many years a counselor helping people with addiction recover.
Mm-hmm.
And since I have identified with Buddhism, I use many of the things that you've talked about, not quite as eloquently as you have, but the same idea.
Mm-hmm.
Screen, a gallery of us, and we are all mature adults in that mature phase of our lives. And so what you've said resonates with me very, very deeply. And it's what I try to communicate to young people, which is so hard to do. And it is difficult to try to explain how to not drift and to become part of the moment, which extends your life in a sense. And I guess what I was saying is, as I do that difficult explanation to people who see themselves as quite distant from dying, I am reinforced in my own understanding that you've kind of summarized for me today. And it just bears in mind for me how important it is for me to keep repeating my beliefs and my ideas about what you have you brought. And so, you know, those 5 remembrances are right there on my bookshelf.
Oh.
And that's because that helps remind me of what my I love that Suzuki quote. How do you know what's the most important thing? Because it is the most important thing, and that helps remind me of this. And so I guess I'm reflecting that it's just important for me to keep repeating this as often as I can. And fortunately, I have the obligation at this stage in my life to help younger people understand some of the core ideas you've talked about, and that helps me remember what it is that I believe in. Anyway, that's my comment. I don't really have a question, but I very much appreciate what you've given us. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Yeah, we're very lucky to have the chance to give a talk. I'm lucky to have the chance to give a talk like this because it's a great reminder to me, you know. And we need reminders. We're forgetful. Human beings are forgetful.
Anyone else? All right, then. Thanks so much for joining with us next week. Tim Masajek will be giving the talk. Tim, do you want to tell me the title of your talk again?
Oh my gosh, you're testing my memory.
I can look it up.
A near quote is how we map our world, practicing with humor, anger, sorrow, and equanimity.
Aha.
All right.
Hokyoji does rely on the generosity of people for its well-being. You could always go on the website and make a small or large donation. You know, it pops right in there. Anyway, thank you so much for joining with us this morning, and hope to see you again next week. So have a great day. Enjoy it. I don't know if the sun is shining. It's trying to shine here.
Are we going to
it's
give
not raining? So
4 vows, Carl?
Oh, we do the 4 vows. That's where we'd wrap up. I'd forgotten it. So, beings are numberless. I vow to freedom. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. Good morning.